'Cause you can, you won't, and you don't stop. 'Cause you can, you won't, and you don't stop. Oh, when you can, you won't, and you don't stop. Might be coming out for sure, shot.
All right, what's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to Simply Cyber Firesides. We got a banger for you today. This is the show that breaks down cybersecurity topics that can be complicated and makes them wicked digestible in the most epic way possible. I'm your host, Dr. Gerald Ozier, and I am super pumped on a level that can't be expressed in words alone for today's conversation on a topic that's increasingly vital in our industry. Cybersecurity careers, specifically within the solutions architect and sales presence. We have the pleasure of welcoming a dear friend of mine, a former colleague of mine, to the show. Brandon Stevens is currently a solutions architect at High Point Solutions, where he brings extensive security experience to helping organizations strengthen their defensive postures. Now, Brandon's journey is fascinating. From serving our country as a satellite communications operator in the South Carolina National Guard to ascending through multiple cybersecurity roles across healthcare, manufacturing, and enterprise managed services. He's been a SOC engineer, an information security analyst, a principal IT security analyst, an IT security manager at organizations like JTech North America and the Medical University South Carolina, where Brandon and I had the absolute delight of working together with each other. He might even have some embarrassing stories of me. Hopefully, you guys keep the questions coming pretty strong today, so he doesn't have time to share any of those. Now, what many of you may not know is that Brandon is also a former professional golfer, and he brings that same precision, that same patience, and that same strategic thinking from the links into the cybersecurity forum. Now, today, Brandon will be sharing his insights on navigating a cybersecurity sales career, the challenges, the opportunities, how security professionals can effectively bridge the gap between technical expertise and business value. He was in the trenches. He's got all the scars and bruises from being a SecOps professional. We're also going to be talking, this guy literally all day, every day is in many, many businesses, environments, large, small, healthcare, manufacturing, like retail. He's got his finger literally on the pulse of what's going on right now. What are the biggest challenges that organizations are seeing? And we're going to tap his expertise because honestly, guys, if you know what the current challenges are for the market, number one, you can have a better idea of what you need to do at your work in order to protect against the greatest risks. And if you're looking to break into the industry, wouldn't it be a secret weapon to just pull out like a howitzer? Is that the right word? Type level weapon about talking about what challenges you're there to fix. Oh, and they just happen to align with the ones that they are also fixing. How did you know that? Was it a magic trick? No, it's because you attended Simply Cyber Firesides and Brandon Stevens melted your face. As always, we encourage you to engage with me and Brandon throughout the conversation. Mod chat is popping. We got Justin Gold, Casually Joseph, Chris Whitlock, among others, in there, making sure that your questions in the comments are getting addressed. I will pull them onto stage. I will ask Brandon. It will be very organic. It will be very cool. And just like every Simply Cyber Firesides, it will be mad value. So please put your hands together. Drop your OPA emotes if you are a squad member. Christina Paulika, the librarians in chat, my man Jesse Johnson, Mara Levy, Chalk, The Pain. Guys, I see you all. What's up? We got a banger today. Oh no, it looks like my sound effects aren't working. We're going to have to work on that as well. We can't let Brandon hear without hearing some sound effects. I've also got to fix the graphics. Let's fix that. Pink, get that going. I'll get a little side scroller across the bottom. Just doing some live, here we go. Just getting some live fix-ups while I'm streaming. No problem. It's called improvisation. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get it together and let's go get Brandon Stevens. What's up, Brandon? How you doing, man?
Jerry, what's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Was that a fairly accurate introduction, sir?
Oh, man, you very inaccurate. Never was a professional golfer. Aspired to be, but
Come on, dude.
since my interview at MUSC, when you walked me out, you were just like, "It's real cool. You play professional golf." So, I never played professional golf.
All right. Well, agree to disagree, but you should
Yeah.
see this guy at Top Golf. He's absolutely lights out. It's awesome. Also, fun story. One time I saw at an outing, Brandon was at a company golf outing, hitting a bucket of range balls, and the new guy we had just hired tried to give Brandon a couple pointers, and then Brandon's like, "Okay," and just like nailed it, like 300 yards. So, Brandon, dude, seriously, you are a solutions architect. And this is the first job that you took outside of SecOps and management, right? So I'm curious, like a lot of people, the term solutions architect is kind of thrown around. It's vague. It means different things at different organizations. Set the record straight for us. What is a solutions architect, and really how does it differ from the expectations that you had going into the role?
Let's see. Let me tighten that up a little bit. Where I know it may mean different things in certain organizations. For us, so High Point, we're considered in the marketplace a value-added reseller, right? We resell products and services to almost any industry. And so for us, the best way to describe it is like I'm part of a pre-sales team. I'm attached to several account managers or actual like salespeople. What makes a solutions architect different is we're expected to kind of have a broad understanding of lots of things. Where, let's say, if you worked for a major OEM like Cisco, Fortinet, Cylance, pick one, right? And you're an SE or sales engineer, you are just hyper focused on that product or that practice. But in our world, a solutions architect, you have to understand the technology landscape well enough to properly communicate to different levels of different customers. You may be talking to a manager, a director, C-level, right? You got to know how to articulate certain concepts to them, but you don't necessarily have to be the expert. Probably the most intimidating thing about considering this role was the classic imposter syndrome, right? Well, I don't know about this and I don't know about that. And so how could I possibly know it well enough to go sell it? Or one of my mentors and current boss was just like, we have specialists to back you up for that. Like I know nothing about storage, right? Or a lot of stuff inside the data center outside of networking. Well, we have principal architects that back us up, and I can tag them as the SMEs to help close that knowledge gap, which provides a lot of confidence in anything that we may position.
What was your prior experience with SecOps? And he was like, doing, kind of SOC analyst / incident response. And usually on smaller teams, when it's in-house, this is just a preface for everybody. When it's smaller teams and it's in-house, you will do SOC analyst work as well as respond to it and do incident response and stuff. So that's what Brandon was doing. He's very good at it. In fact, he was probably too good at it because he wanted to move at like 80 miles an hour, and we were moving probably closer to 30 miles an hour. But Brandon, what kind of experiences did you have that set you up for success as a solution architect?
I would say the biggest thing is understanding the enterprise. Like I came into this world thinking that like, hey, I'm better with people than technology. Clearly the top of the mountain is CISO. That's absolutely my future, right? As an entry-level person. Well, I got the CCNA, worked my way over towards kind of security engineering, then got into, this is when I joined at MUSC as an analyst. Well, the reason I took that role is because I was sort of outside the enterprise as the managed services security engineer. And I thought, well, gosh, how can I possibly be a CISO if I've never worked inside the walls of an enterprise? And I loved my job at the time, but I needed that experience to get where I thought I wanted to go. Well, it did not take me long inside the enterprise before I realized probably don't want to be a CISO. It's not nearly as having that C in front of your name is not nearly as shiny as it sounds.
No.
And then, as you know, I left there to let me back up. So that's where at MUSC, I worked on the security ops team. One of the things that I thought was the most valuable positions was the fact that I was allowed to learn. I wasn't told what to go do. I was they said, here's a problem, and they kind of trusted me to go research that problem and solve it, whether it was through commercial tools, open source, what have you. So I got to do a lot of on the job learning, not so much training. I mean, I still have in my bookshelf some blue team field manuals that I bought while I was while I was on the clock at MUSC. So I really appreciated that. Then I left there to become eventually basically lead this security program for JTech North America. I ended up as their IT security manager, which there is effectively the CISO. I mean, they didn't have C-level representation for IT, just based on their org structure, but effectively in charge of cybersecurity for North and South America. And that was fun. It was very rewarding, came with its challenges, but I kind of knew at that point that like leadership was cool, mentoring was cool. But once I got the opportunity to move into this role as an architect, well, it's far more rewarding for me because I get to help so many more people, not just one organization.
One of the things I talk about all the time, Brandon, and again, Brandon and I are good friends. Like I'm literally drinking a beer on stream right now because I've wanted to have a beer with him since he moved away, and I haven't been able to, except that one time right at the very beginning. But but one of the things that I constantly push, and I'm not a very pushy person, but there's certain things I push on, is the value of networking and building relationships. And honestly, the reason that I had one of my jobs after MUSC was because it was the job Brandon vacated, and I I took it over essentially, right? So those relationships are super valuable. I'm curious. You mentioned your current boss, right? And how he's been championing you, but you had relationships with him prior. So these things come full circle. You're kind of a poster child for the benefits of this. Well, in your experience, and go as, personal or not personal as you want, Brandon, or how you've seen it. But what is your thoughts on the value of networking and helping you with your career?
I mean, I would say it's absolutely invaluable, and it's almost amplified in this role because there are a lot of folks that I work with now that the only reason I work with them is because I have a relationship with them from a previous employer or in different capacities, right? And I think it's very important to, I guess I'm a firm believer you can learn something from everyone, right? Not just what to do, but you can also learn what not to do, right? And so you just have to be really, really observant and look at traits that you want to replicate. Jerry, I'll give you a perfect example, and you may remember this. And it didn't take me long at MUSC. And I think I was maybe 3.5, 4 years into my career. So Jerry and I had a cubicle kind of right across the walkway from each other. And I'm like, my God, this guy is organized and driven and scheduled. And it was insane how effective he was. And remember, I even said, hey man, I noticed that you are incredible at this. I would like to get better at that. Let's go grab a coffee one day and teach me kind of your methods, right? It's like, look for people around you that you can learn from, make that connection. And I promise you, it'll pay dividends in the end. And then once again, you can work for some really bad teams and know when you get into a leadership position, or maybe you're somewhere else, you're like, remember that guy or that team that I really did not like working with, and this is why. Don't be like that, right? Or, I think you can just learn so much from the folks around you.
100%. I feel like networking is building relationships and stuff, but then you never know who's watching. And to Brandon's point, right? If you kind of suck or you don't try, or you're you're the person, everybody did this in school at some point, like when you were in high school or whatever, you have like a 4-person project and everybody got an A, but 3 people did the work, and they're like, we don't want to work with Bill ever again. Bill sucked, except extrapolate that into the workforce. You're never going to, I guess you want to be the person whose name gets brought up in the room when you're not there. Ultimately that's it. Right.
Yeah. Well, and if you just to simplify it. So my first job I got in the industry is as a systems engineer, but quickly moved over to the security title. When I got back from Afghanistan in 2013, it took me about 2 weeks before a friend of mine that I knew from when I bartended, right? He was just an IT guy, was a customer of mine, helped facilitate my first job in the business, right? I got the job at MUSC based on your typical job board searches, right? I didn't know anyone there. But from MUSC, I got the job at JTech because I knew someone. I got the job now because I knew someone. Jerry, you've told me plenty of times that, if you're effective at what you do, jobs can find you, right? You don't have to go look at it. It's so, but that's more than just technical skills. You need to have the personal skills to go be likable, right? And I'm not saying kiss people's feet. I'm just saying that just be open to learn, be open to talk to people about things that you know or maybe don't know.
Yeah. And again, everybody's got their own personality and stuff, but I mean, I can tell you, like, I was part of the group that decided to hire Brandon, right, at MUSC, right? Like, now Brandon's obviously like grown his own leaves and branches, and he doesn't need me anymore. But at the time, Brandon was interviewing for a job. Like he said, he didn't know anyone. We're looking at it, we're like, oh, pro golfer. Like, what does this guy know about anything? And he came in, and he I'll tell you, I don't know if I've ever told you this, Brandon, but like what really stood out, like as soon as he left, we'd already interviewed like 3-4 people for this job. And as soon as he left, we were like, that's the guy. And we all kind of agreed, like, he had the right attitude. He was hungry. He had initiative. He showed passion and interest. He even said, like, on some of the questions, he's like, you know what? I really don't know. I hadn't even heard about that, but it sounds interesting. Like, I could see how it might relate to this. I'm not going to give you a bullshit answer though. Like, I just hadn't heard about that. And like that candidness, it just conveyed, like I don't know how to explain it, but it's just, you were the right person for the job because of the intangibles that you presented.
Yeah, I think that it's funny you tell that story because I was going to tell it for you, but it's because Jerry's told me plenty of times the reason I was hired is because I didn't know something, which may sound weird, right? But I learned that in one of my first job interviews where I knew nothing other than what the textbook taught in my CCNA studies, right? And I'm in front of this group of senior level, like co-founders of the company. Like it was insane, the level of engineering prowess that was interviewing me. And when they asked me a question, I was just like, I really don't know, but like, and I even asked them for the answer. It's like, hey, will you educate me on that? Right. Like, but the natural instinct is to just try hard, fumble through it, just give some effort, and that'll shine through. But I think people are looking for candidness a lot of times, right? Just say you don't know it. And I would always follow up with, well, I don't know it. Like, what do you fill me in? Like, what should I know? Right. Like in the interview, don't be afraid of what you don't know.
Yeah. And Christina Paulika, actually, I think she's saying this kind of cheeky, which is great, is that she says it's a sales role. So I think she's almost saying like selling yourself in a job interview, like in general. Like if you're being a slimy sales guy, like people can pick up on that. Another thing that for that particular position that we filled, I remember one other candidate. I can't remember the guy's name now, but like he got every question right. He was exceptional. He was also unbelievably arrogant to the point where we were just like, oh my God, like, dude, like pump the brakes. Like, and like I don't want to work with that guy. You know what I mean? So, hey, clarify something. Chris Whitlock, GRC Mafia member, says solutions architect sounds like a sales role. Would you classify it as a sales role?
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's pre-sales role is kind of how we would describe it in-house. In the way that I guess this is sort of, I say this in jest, but like, I feel like my role protects the customer from the salesman, right? Because salesmen are not account manager. And I'm not talking about hours or just in general, right? But a lot of times in this world, true sales guys are non-technical, right? They've not lived the life of the technologist. They're sort of told to go push stuff. They may be given white papers. I mean, even the sales training we're provided is different than like you may go take Cisco training, same platform. The sales training is completely different than the engineers training, right? They're not. And so you're taught concepts. So what we do here, I think, is really nice because they kind of pair us with folks with certain skill sets. Most of them are non-technical salespeople. So they have a role and we have a role, and they rely on us to develop good solutions for the customer.
So the solution architect's almost like the advocate for the client in order to help them get a solution that actually drives cyber risk reduction, instead of just selling the the highest
thing.
ticket item.
Yeah. And so, and I'll probably share a little bit of inside baseball here on the sales side, but there's a term I had never heard before until I got here. But there's a phrase called bag divers, right? Those are the guys that like pull something out of a bag. Hey, you want one of these? You want one of these? You want like, you don't want to be one of those people in the sales world, right? Solutions architect, simply put, is if we have a relationship, you're a client, you come to me with a problem. Well, I'm going to architect a solution to solve said problem. And to gain any credibility, I have to do it the right way. I'll give you a perfect example, and this is non-cyber related, but I think it'll resonate. I had a customer call me and say, "Hey, we need a couple new Cisco wireless controllers." Right? They're new. Our olds they're so old that we can't even assign new APs to them. Right? They just neglected their infrastructure for a bit. Well, knowing their infrastructure, I told them, I was like, guys, I can sell you $250,000 worth of Cisco gear, but I think you'd be better off, because you have a firewall refresh coming up, looking at a Fortinet solution, because I don't know if you know this, but the Fortinet firewalls act as a local wireless controller. So you can buy a firewall and an AP in one package and have a wireless environment that's secured with the firewall, right? It's far less money for us, right? We don't make as much on it, but it's the best thing for the customer. And so that's where, like, if someone without that experience steps in there, hey, Mr. Customer, you need 2 new controllers? Sure, let me go quote that, right? You asked for it, here you get, or here you go. My role is to truly build a partnership with the client to try to serve them and provide the best solution possible with their input, of course, right? But that would be a good example.
Yeah, and I love that. Christina Paulika, jumps in here and says she's a solution engineer and loves your explanation between the solution architect and sales engineer. Think of the role as a consultant. I love that. And also, guys, like, relationships are important. Like, even just a minute ago, we were talking about the value of networking, right? Like, yeah, if Brandon sells me some stuff I don't need, like my personality, I'll pay for it and I'll take it, but I'm gonna go try to find someone else next time around, right? You want to be like the guy, right? Like, even like a common one I like to think of is like a car salesman, right? Like I loathe buying cars. Like I literally hate the experience. I try to drive it until my truck falls apart because I don't want that experience. But like, if I had like a legit go-to person that I could just call and say, "Hey, it's time for a new car," and they're like, "All right, like budget, what do you want?" Like, "I got you, Jerry." Like, just that experience where it's frictionless and it doesn't become something you have anxiety about. It's super awesome. Christina says she's looked into more technical roles, but enjoys pre-sales that can help make seemingly complex decisions more accessible. Actually, good question, Brandon. And again, like, let's just assume your employer is watching the stream right now.
Mm-hmm.
Having been deep in the trenches in front of the eye candy knock board and being in a solutions architect role, I mean, I guess compare and contrast your enjoyment of the roles.
I would say different senses of enjoyment, like the really locking horns as an analyst with some incident that I had to solve the problem. Like, that was like, once you finally fix it, once you finally resolve the incident, whatever the situation may be, extremely rewarding. But this is without a doubt the most rewarding position I've ever been in, because you get to help people, right? I kind of have this I enjoy service, right? It's just you get to truly kind of consult. You get to help people make good decisions, and it feels really good when you put a good solution together, build new relationships.
Cam wants to know, what's the depth or width of a knowledge needed to make a good salesman or a good solutions architect? Let's use that. An emphasis on good one, right? Not just like passable.
So I'll say that in my opinion, I would say the one trait you'd have to have is to put the customer first, no matter what. And I'll tell you what I absolutely hang my hat on is I absolutely refuse to put a solution in front of a customer I don't personally believe in. And if I have to, I will tell the customer, I'm not vetted this. I've not looked at it. It might seem like it's a fit, but I'm not vouching for it. Like, that rarely ever happens. But that's what I sort of hang my hat on at the end of the day. And maybe an example is, lots of times if you're sort of asked to look at a certain piece of technology, whether it's from your employer, whether it's from your the customer itself, like you may tell me it's good, you may tell me to go sell it, but I'm going to go validate that. And there was, I'm going to try to be vague here since I don't want to get myself in trouble, but
Sure. And dude, hey, real quick, we don't want you to get in trouble.
Yeah,
That's not a goal of Simply Cyber.
well, I have seen solutions that I had asked to talk about or at least take to the masses, but seemed really good, man. Like I'll tell you, I was really hot on the concept, thought they were innovative, but because I haven't seen it in practice, I didn't feel like it was customer ready. And I went to our offensive security team and I said, this is a defensive product. I said, hey, can you guys, I worked with this particular vendor to get a lab stood up. And I was like, I wanted our offensive team to like kick the tires on it, like see if this thing really, really holds up under pressure. And it absolutely did not. Now, I think it was a nice partnership because we helped show that we helped show that company some gaps they might have had that they've since closed. But the message there is like, I'm not taking something to the customer, whether it be a product or a service that I don't personally trust. I just refuse to do that. And to answer your question, like that's what I think makes a good salesman or a solutions architect. Like most people have kind of a nice natural BS meter, right? And it goes off real quick, right? If one thing everyone on my team has, we all came from the customer side. We have experience from buying from people and living through the pains of an implementation. And that really resonates. And anybody in this industry who's worked with sales guys, SEs from wherever, you can smell it on them in the first 5 minutes that they don't know what the real world looks like. I mean, yeah. and you instantly lose credibility. I mean, you really do.
Yeah, and I definitely think your experience sets you up for wild success in that capacity. Chris Whitlock says, are there any particular tools of the trade or otherwise that somebody could upskill or break into, right? We see Brandon Stevens, solutions architect, Christina Paulika's in the space, right? So people are feeling, hey, this could be for me. What do you think, Brandon? How do we get skilled up in this thing?
So it's not so much a technical role. So it's hard to kind of tie it to technology upskill. I would just say, read a lot in terms, like you need you need to be able to articulate very well anything about all technology, right? Like I may not know squat about, like I said earlier, storage, data center, right? But just knowing the lingo well enough to have the conversation will get me through until I can get my expert, right? And so I would just say if a solutions architect is something you would aspire to be or a similar role, know a little bit about a lot is the best way I can describe it.
Now, I'm curious, Brandon. And again, because Brandon is doing this job that we're actively asking him about, I do want to be respectful of his anonymity and privacy. And I mean, anonymity quasi, you know what I mean? So when you say read a lot, like, are you thinking like Gartner and Forrester, or are you thinking more like threat intelligence feeds coming out of like Unit 42, or like when you say read, like what exactly? I mean, is it go to a black hat and walk around the vendor hall?
Let me take that. Like reading is a nice entry point because it's easy, right? Like you can get the entry level education on just about anything for low or no cost, right? Another thing is, man, I'll tell you, I've hired people. If you come into an interview without a single certification, but you can speak to a lab that you built, I'm putting you 5 tiers above the person with 3 certs by their name, right? Because you learned the pain of that implementation. It didn't just work, right? Like, go get your hands on a little bit of technology, right? Like you might have a cyber background, you might be on the GRC side. Well, at least be able to run a packet tracer lab so you know how a network functions. Like I'm not asking you to configure BGP. I'm asking you to know what a subnet is, right? Like have a little bit of knowledge across. Like for me, I know very, very little about development. I don't like it. I can read code. I know what it does. Don't ask me to write it, right? I just don't enjoy doing it. But I know enough about the world to have a conversation with a developer and at least keep that conversation going. Right. So that's, ask yourself, well, do I know enough to talk to this person who may have that skill set you don't have? And if you don't, it takes half a book to get there.
So it's 5 o'clock. We're 30 minutes in. We're talking to Brandon Stevens. He's a solutions architect. He's also a good friend of mine, former pro golfer, scratch golfer, I think. And are you still scratch?
No, I'm like 4.5 now.
Okay. And we're just talking about solution architect as a career. A lot of people in chat asking questions. I do want to pivot a little bit, but before we do, Brandon, I've been flirting with this idea since this morning when I was in the shower. And I want to introduce a new segment to Simply Cyber Firesides. And you seem like the perfect person to beta test this on. So are you interested?
I feel like I'm about to get roasted. I don't know. Go away. I don't have a choice. We're live, right?
Yes, we are live. Yeah. So some of you may have seen this thing, like different famous people do it. It's called like Answer the Internet. And like you get these like random questions and you answer them. So I'm just going to ask you some fun random questions. And I'm kind of curious. And then we're going to pivot. Okay. So just a couple questions, right? So Brandon, Brandon and I actually, I'm going to adjust this one a little bit. Brandon and I watched Fear of the Walking Dead together. Because that's when it was on TV when we worked
together. Right? It was the first one. It was the first one.
The Walking Dead, whatever. They had so many spinoffs, right? Yeah. But the one with Rick and Carl, this one? Yeah. Oh, my soundboard isn't working. That's brutal, dude. Hold on. I'll get that fixed. I have a Carl sound effect of Rick screaming Carl. It's awesome. Okay. Anyways, if you were facing The Walking Dead, okay? Yeah. And you had to choose a movie star, a TV character, a video game character to fight with you. So like it's a movie character, but it's not Tom Hanks. It's the guy from Castaway, right? Like if you had to pick one person to fight alongside you in the Walking Dead, okay, universe.
I get one.
You get one. It's a duo. You're running duos today. Unless you have a couple where you're like split, and then we could do a trio. It's really more about like, who do you pick? Movie star, TV character, or a video game character? Who are you taking to fight the Walking Dead and the new reality of what life is in society?
Oh man, that's tough.
Well, I mean, let's break it down.
I would have a different answer had I had more time to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
But first thought that popped in my head was Schwarzenegger from Terminator 2. Like the dude's, I mean, he's designed to protect me. He's indestructible. Like no zombies mess with that cat. Right. So I'll take the Terminator.
Oh, actually, that's wicked solid. He doesn't eat. He doesn't sleep. He doesn't if you tell him to protect you.
Work, yeah.
Damn, that is really good. Oh, I was thinking of somebody who was I had a perfect one, but they weren't a robot. Like that's super good. Damn, dude. Okay. All right. So there you go. And drop it in chat.
I would say you could go with some sort of superhero Marvel. Like you could find someone cooler, right? But like that guy's there.
Yeah.
Like, I'll take Arnold.
I feel like if you went Superman, you might just turn into a lunatic where you try to turn into like Negan, where you like take over the world because you basically have a weapons advantage, right? Yeah. I'm just talking about surviving.
Hey, can I jump in on the segment? Because I started laughing at the questions. I thought we were going to go into our internal coffee stand-up of, what three are you taking? Like from the group, you remember that?
Okay, yeah, we can do that. So
can I roast you real quick?
Go ahead. Yeah, please. And really quick, people in chat were roasting me about my organization skills and how you commented on that earlier. So go ahead, Brandon.
All right, so I'll try this. While Walking Dead was hot and popular, right? Season 3, right, ish, right, where it was the rage. I thought it was cool to ask people like, hey, you got to take 3 people from the group. Who are you taking? Right? Jerry chooses Herschel, the one-legged veterinarian, as the healer. And like, I
got a lot of trouble for that. I got a lot of trouble. People didn't think it was a good idea to take a one-legged elderly person.
Well, yeah. I get where you're coming from. You're using your like D&D experience. Right? I need the healer on my team or World of Warcraft, whatever that is. It's like, no, man, he's an old one-legged vet. I'll take hard pass. Anyway,
Yeah.
next question. I had to share that.
No, it's good. It's good. And in hindsight, his daughter probably had picked up enough like triage skills from him to be serviceable. And in full effect, when Herschel died, I came to realize that he was a terrible pick.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck? And like it's fighting, like the winner gets either like a load of money for you or like a lot of bird feed or a lot of hay or something.
Oh man, I'm gonna go against the giant duck.
Yeah, take
I
the
don't think
chances.
you can fight off 100 anything, especially something that can fly. Like, or no, that was the horse. So the horses would be. I don't know. I could probably just kick them around.
All right, there you
Yeah, I
go.
almost changed my answer. I'll go to the duck-sized horses. That was the answer. That's an option.
You're gonna take 100 duck size. Well, you think you can just like boot them around or kick?
Well, it's a duck, man. I mean, I don't know. Go ahead.
Okay, if you had to throw one free throw and make it, you get $1 million. So you're not guaranteed the $1 million. You just get a chance for a free throw. But in exchange, you're never allowed to use text messaging again. Like basically your pre like 1998 technology on phones, right? You don't get text messaging anymore. Like what are you doing? You taking the shot or are you keeping texting?
So I have to hit the shot to get the money.
Correct.
If I miss, I'm without money or texting.
Yes.
Ooh. Well, I have zero social media and I kind of hate smartphones in general. So I'll absolutely take the shot. I'm a pretty good free throw shooter too. So I'll take the chance.
Okay, all right. So he's going to take the shot. All right. So thus concludes our new segment that I'm slowly baking into the show. Let us know in chat. I'll start a poll after I ask Brandon the next question. We've got some questions. Hold on. There's questions coming up that clearly have to do with what we're doing right now. So let me see. Like as I said, we have a new segment. Base Case, who's one of the mods, says, Superman as a zombie would be a problem, right? So Terminator doesn't turn into a zombie, right? But Superman could.
Yeah,
so
I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
Good move. Let's see. Yep, we've got people who agree that Herschel should not be in there. A horse-sized duck. Base Case is taking that one. I don't even know what you said, but spoken like a true golfer, right? Casually Joseph wants to know, Brandon, has Jerry always sucked at typing? He loves to make typos when he texts. This is true. I honestly, Brandon, since we last worked together, I feel like I'm getting further away from the keyboard as like a business owner, where like I just type and like if it kind of looks close enough, like where you can interpret it, I just send it. But honestly, you could tell these people how is my typing or my report skills.
Oh, the report skills, fantastic. I've never really, we haven't texted in a while, so I don't.
Oh, we have a group Telegram. We have a group Telegram chat.
No, I think it's above. I would say it's on par. We'll stick with the golf theme. Yeah, no complaints that I've seen.
Okay, there you go. See, Casually Joseph, I'm not that bad. Also, Base Case, good qualifier. Do you get warm up shots on the free throws? That's a pretty important thing. I would say yes. All right, thus concludes the session. I will start a poll to get some ideas from you guys if you like this. All right, Brandon, getting back to the reality, we're talking to Brandon Stevens, solutions architect, straight crushing it like a boss. One of the things that I want to know, Brandon, so like literally you're in tons of people's environments, listening to people's problems all day, every day. You've got your finger on the pulse of the industry, top threats, real deal, real stories. Give us a little peek into like, what is the current state of the market, not just like the sales side and the vendor side, but also like the real challenges and problems and any kind of like legit trends that are worth noting.
I'll tell you the topics that everyone is sort of, I'll say the buzzwords right now. Obvious, it's AI is part of that. And I'll tell you an interesting statistic I saw in a presentation about a month ago that something like, and I'm going to be a little bit off of my numbers. But about 83% of all companies say their business needs AI, but like 12% of businesses have no idea how or why. Right. So there's like this, we're kind of in this place where I don't think people like folks in the enterprise understand AI enough to know how it can help their business. Because my take on AI from security, it could be security related, it could be business related, but the business needs to bring the use case to IT. That's just not happening because they don't understand the technology well enough. So that's a hot topic right now. Everybody wants AI, but nobody knows how to do it, why they need it. They've just told they need it, right? Another interesting, everybody's talking micro segmentation these days. And I mean, originally I kind of got that, like, yeah, sure, like, we'll just segment the heck out of everything. But the more that I see it in practice and the more that I see people really trying to do it, the less I personally like that as a strategy.
Really?
From a security perspective, I just don't think the juice is worth the squeeze, right? Is what it comes down to. It's very complex to do or expensive if you buy a tool that can do it for you. And I think you could probably spend half of that on just a really good network design, like a traditional network design. Know your key assets, segment them off and monitor give yourself a choke point, monitor that. That may be different from everything in the cloud, like SaaS platforms, but you still, and we're talking on-prem since we're talking networking here, but I'm becoming less and less convinced micro-segmentation is a good strategy.
Okay, so is microsegmentation, are you calling that just on-prem firewall microsegmentation, or are we talking zero trust architecture?
Yeah, we'll call it on your corporate network microsegmentation out to your endpoints, right? I think the potential for operational risk is high because if you don't do it properly, you could be very disruptive. Lots of overhead on your internal IT department. In theory, it sounds good, right? And it may very well be good, but one thing that I've seen, if you want to put kind of an offensive spin on this, right? Let's say you're in a Windows environment. The random accounting person always gets picked on in this scenario, so I'm going to use it. So Bob, the accountant, clicks the phishing link, right, for the free Amazon gift card, right? Somehow C2 gets dropped on that endpoint. Let's say you have microsegmentation in place. Well, you can't talk to anything else, right? That sounds cool, right? Well, you can talk to the domain controller. Have you hardened your domain controller? Like, well, if I go and compromise your domain controller, well, I've just circumvented your entire microsegmentation solution. Because now your domain controller can talk to everyone, and as soon as I elevate privileges, I can just start turning your stuff off, right? Like, and you just spent a ton of money and time implementing a microsegmentation strategy. That's why I just think there's better ways of doing it, and it's all dependent on every organization. Like, I'm not going to make blanket statements and say it's bad. I'm just saying that everybody's talking about it, and I'm less and less convinced that that's go zero trust as far as you can. Don't get me wrong, but like taking it out that far, I think it's too much overhead and it's too expensive, not enough value.
So, okay, again, if there's any questions you're not super comfortable on, don't answer them, Brandon. There's been a ongoing question within the industry between heterogeneous versus homogeneous stacks, right? And we see the big players like Microsoft, Palo Alto, Cisco acquiring all the services, right? Like Okta got acquired, and Splunk got acquired, and like basically these large big tech giants are offering EDR, SIM, MDR in some instances, MDM, like the whole, threat intelligence, the whole package. And there's a case to be made for both, right? There's a great case for heterogeneous stacks and homogeneous stacks. And I have my preference, right? But what are you seeing? I guess let's take it maybe a little bit. I want you, if you want to give your opinion, give your opinion. But what are you seeing as far as what the preference is in the market, and what are the pros and cons that you would say to a potential client who's trying to decide?
Well, so I've always been a best fit kind of guy, where I don't think you can say one is better than the other ones. You just have to know what fits your organization, because I think people have failed with both options, right? Because it didn't fit their business. I can speak to actually I can share a slide from a presentation I gave last year at SC Cyber Conference on this very thing, where I kind of anonymized it, but one side of the slide was someone who went full best of breed, and then once was a total different company that went with a single provider, right? And the folks with the single provider across the stack just did a better job. I felt like they got far more value out of that versus the folks that went best of breed, because eventually, and it really comes down to the team. It's got to be a fit, because in that situation, the organization that tried to go best of breed across the board half implemented all of them because they couldn't support them, right? So like, what good is a half implemented best of breed solution versus a fully integrated, fully baked non best of breed solution that incorporates the rest of the ecosystem? Like, you tell me which one's better, right? Like, and
yeah,
so if you can't support it, most of the time, and this is very general, but going with a single ecosystem or homogeneous, I guess that's what you're using there. Big words.
Well, I mean, that's the term I like to use.
You got to use the big words. You got the doctor title. I got it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, 100%. This diploma on the wall isn't, it's not just for show, right? It's this right here. I got it framed and everything, so I got to use like multiple syllable words here.
I'll use your words. The homogeneous is easier to integrate because you are. I think because most teams are understaffed and underfunded. You can get multi-product discounts in that world.
Yep.
But the risk there is when a large player buys a smaller player, like, they likely can't support that product as well as you think they can. Like, they're not going to be able to support that product as well as their core product for quite some time, because they have to acquire all those engineers that came with that company, probably fire half of them. And, it's just I would be wary of that if you're looking at that type of solution. I've seen that where I won't use the brand, but they offer everything under the sun. And I've heard people complaining about their horrid support on their non-core product.
I've had environments with platform. Okay, so platform versus best of breed is another way to put it. I've been told in private chat here. Homogeneous, if you want to, get a triple word score on Scrabble. But I've done that personally, and like you said, the acquired solutions, they're janky, right? Like they definitely have some type of adapter on the back end to make it communicate correctly with the core infrastructure of the solution, and it's just kind of janky. And what they were really doing was buying the market share more than anything. I mean, yeah. And I would say, actually, I'm kind of curious, because my initial thought, Brandon, and again, I don't want you to disclose anything that you're not comfortable with, but like, if I was a CISO going into a new environment and I had to make a splash right away because of the politics of the environment. Now, this has nothing to do with cyber risk reduction, okay? Like, obviously, you're going to get some cyber risk reduction with both solutions, but going with a platform solution is kind of an easy way to say, hey, listen, we've got all these things and, quick wins, big wins. We're going to roll it out. We got a 3-year plan. And you can hit the ground running. So from, there's this old consulting phrase, if you've never heard it: fast, good, and cheap, and you get to pick two, and that's always the case, right? You can go really fast and really cheap, but it's not going to be very good. Same thing here. So like, you can go really fast and not necessarily cheap, but you can do it okay, and be able to report to the board and show quick wins and stuff like that if you need politically to make some headway really, really quickly, versus you've been a CISO for 10, 15 years. You've been at the organization. You kind of made your way up, and you know where the bodies are buried, and you kind of are like solving individual problems. That's what I would say. Here, another question coming in.
Well, can I?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Let me ask one final thought on that. I think the answer to your question depends on your perspective. Like if you're the engineer, if you're maybe the manager of the team of engineers, you're going to likely favor the integration or the platform approach because it's easier to implement. Everything communicates well. Same support number. Like, however, if you're the C-level or if you own the budget, you're going to probably not like it as much because, yeah, they'll give you some discounting, but that also comes with being boxed in. And so, like, it's a lot harder to move an entire platform if somehow they aren't performing than it is to replace a point product. So if you're the C-level, you're going to view it completely different than you are the engineer or whoever's responsible for implementation. I think it all depends on what seat you're in.
100% for sure. Like, and I feel like that's some of the nuance that people don't really realize when they're coming up into industry. It's like, oh, everybody has the same vision on what's the best approach. And sometimes it matters on what personally serves your agenda, frankly, a bit better. Hey, really quick, I just want to drop this for everybody. So this is the same Brandon Stevens right here. We do have to help Brandon now. You should definitely have a header image, bud, and like a smart URL for your LinkedIn account. Huh?
I told you, I loathe social media. I didn't even have LinkedIn until I got this job, and it was strongly suggested that I get one. But yeah, it could use some improvement. It's not very active. So,
all right. Well, do me a favor, everybody. If you want, Brandon is a really cool dude. If you do connect with him on LinkedIn, he's probably not going to message very often because he's clearly not super into it. But it's this is him and worth doing. And great smile on this guy, too, I might add. Just crushing it. We got a couple questions in chat, Brandon. This one coming from Christina. This is a minute ago. She said, how do you balance your core responsibility of working with clients while educating internal stakeholders and sales teams on enhancing product knowledge?
Oh, man. So the way we're structured is I have... normally you're attached to one salesperson or two. And so it's not that difficult, but we also have dedicated teams that we can use to kind of support that as well. And I'm a personal fan as well I like anecdotal information far more than I like technical information. Like, for example, Jerry, if you tell me of your experience, good or bad with something, I'm going to value that a lot more than if whatever Gartner says or whatever Gartner says, right? Like, so I appreciate holding on to those stories and share those with clients and share those with internal peers because that's real world data that I trust. It's not someone who paid to get on a Magic Quadrant somewhere, right? Anyway. That's probably the best answer. I like to use trusted sources for that rather than, I would say, training or vendor provided information.
Nathan says, does it hurt defense in depth talking about best of breed versus platform? Like, so you said you were a big fan of best of breed, right? I think, or no. Which one did you say?
Well, I'll say it depends. It depends on your company, right?
Oh, do you think either of them hurt defense in depth?
Not. I mean, most large players offer controls at every layer of what you would consider defense in depth. However, you are kind of putting all your eggs in that basket can be like it could put you at risk if for some reason that company has a problem, right? Whether it's a bug, whether it was let's call it CrowdStrike, right?
Yeah.
If you have I don't know. I think that's the risk with going single provider, or it is, they may have a software vulnerability. It's exploited. Like it's just that's where I see that may be impacted, but I don't know if it truly impacts textbook defense in depth.
Bustin' Justin, how can you explain defense in depth versus having multiple products doing the same thing? Man, I mean, those are two different things by definition, right? Defense in depth is several products doing complementary things in one. What? Let me ask you this. Sorry, Bustin' Justin, I don't fully understand your question, so let me pivot it a bit. Brandon, when you go into a client's environment and you see that they have like 8 things doing the same exact thing, how do you approach that conversation to let them know?
It can be tricky because a lot of times technology conversations can become religious in the engineering world, right? Like you're just not going to talk a Cisco person out of using Cisco, right? Whether it's the best or not. That's a best example, at least in the Carolinas, that I can give because of their headquarters is in, or at least because of their presence in Raleigh. That's a good example. So I don't know. Ask that question again. I lost it.
The question was, when you go into an environment and like say, you know,
okay, you're talking tool overlap. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think what I would always try to do is offer some sort of deeper conversation and assessment. I'm a fan of the cyber defense matrix, right? Where you can show that overlap on one screen. That's something you could do. But I always want to learn more, because it could be that the products have the same capability, but they may not have those licensing turned on, or it's a shared product where infrastructure kind of uses it for this, but security could dabble in it, but security has a tool that does sort of so you got to just you have to learn the environment better to know who's using it, why is it there. And lots of times I always like to try to help people save money. And if I can find overlap, then we'll call it out and help them consolidate.
Dude, what's your like you just said you have to understand someone's environment, but that means you have to like get your hands dirty, you have to have conversations. Like, do you have like at this point you must like some type of icebreaker question, or like how do you find out what someone's environment is like?
Well, let's see. I'll answer that in 2 parts. So my icebreaker, if I'm having a new conversation with a security team, right? Top 2 questions. What security framework do you adhere to?
Yes, right? Sir. That's GRC all day long.
I don't care which one it is. It could be NIST, it could be CIS. It doesn't matter. I'm just judging your comprehension of maturity, right? Like that's what I want to know, because I want to know what kind of conversation I can continue to have with you. And no joke, I've had people say, we don't really tie ourselves down with framework. We use a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And as soon as I got that answer, I'm just like, I'm not sure how to help you guys. Right. So that's my first question is I want to know do you have a framework and what is it? Right. I need to know that. And then 2, I want to know how they're tracking that maturity, or what security metrics do you have? Like that's always where I start, because that immediately tells me how mature your organization is. Like not by the data you would say, but if you even just give me an answer, then you're doing better than most, is what I've found. And so now I can continue to like if you have a framework and you're tracking the maturity, well, all right, well, let's talk about what controls are you least mature with, right? That's kind of how I would learn the security landscape at a company. Or if they don't have metrics, man, I love talking security metrics, because it's so easy to do, but very few people do it well that I've seen. And number of hits on your outside interface on your firewall is not a metric. Let's put that out there. Okay. You ever brought up a pew pew map in a sales meeting? Yeah, that's not a valid metric. Anyway, those are the 2 things that I'm trying to learn on the security side.
That's phenomenal. So what I just heard Brandon tell us is that he goes in and basically subtly asks 2 questions that anybody who is built a program, right? Oh, this is our baby. You know, this is our fort that we built. Is going to be proud and happy to talk about, but the answers that they're giving are actually revealing the maturity level and their understanding of information security at that business, which then allows Brandon to gauge the level of depth that he needs to go in, right? You're not talking about, I don't know, next gen firewalls if like they're just like got duct tape and some bubble gum holding it all together, right?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, security is this sort of unique world where you can ascend through that world and get worse at your job because you may be a technical person and you get thrown into technology comes easy to you, but understanding the business just does not, right? And I'm not faulting people, but it's a tough ascension when you get up to the management decision-making levels, because you need to be technical, but lots of times the most technical people climb that ladder, and when they get there, they're far less effective than they were when they were the technologist, right? Like, and you can tell that, like, if I'm talking to someone who might have found themselves in that position, those are the ones that can articulate the risk or the frameworks, because they see things through a technology lens. They're not seeing things from a risk management lens. You gotta kind of go up a few levels. As you grow through security, you have to sort of truly elevate your perspective. And if you can't do that, it's going to be tough to be effective.
So for all you pen testers in chat, that basically means you got to pay respect, bend the knee to GRC, if you will, just a little bit. You can still do pen testing, but you got to appreciate and understand if you want your reports to be read and taken action on. That's what I'm hearing. Yeah. Brandon, what do you go to conferences? Like, where do you like to cruise for cyber stuff?
You know what? The last conference I attended, Alex said, it's the first and only time I presented, and it was at SC Cyber. It's just sort of but I'm kind of a homebody. I don't get out in front of folks as much as I should. I tried to follow you around Black Hat. You quickly told me that, like, you can come, but you're just going to follow me and watch me talk to people. Like, we're not even going to hang out. So I was like, well, I'll skip that.
Dude, that makes me sound like such a douche. Like I was.
You're just busy. You're just busy, and I get it.
That's not entirely true. What he's I did say that, but I was being real, right?
Yeah.
It's
no,
just,
I've never found, and this, once again, this is largely because I just I'm more of a homebody. Don't like to travel if I don't have to. I don't like going to conferences unless there's some training involved, right? Like I don't. Very rarely have I ever gone to a conference and sat through a talk and then went back to work and implemented said content. I just haven't. Like, it may be good but it's good to network, right? Like, it's probably at a conference. I think that finding someone outside the conference who may, like, in the hotel bar to catch up, have a conversation with, is more valuable than listening to a session in my experience. Like, and I'll tell you, the one time I went to, I think it was InfoSec in Ponte Vedra. And I went and sat through this session. It was about how to build an IR playbook using OneNote. Loved the content. The guy even said, here's my email, here's my phone number. Reach out, I'll give you my template. I bet I contacted that guy 5 times and he just ghosted me. It's like, well, I appreciate that. But like, anyway, so I'm not knocking conferences. They're just not my thing unless I'm going there to meet specific people or take specific training.
We host a conference here in Charleston. You might be familiar with it, called Simply CyberCon. It's going to be in early November this year. This will be our second year in person or whatever. Details still to follow, Brandon, but CFP will be opening. And if High Point wants some presence, that can also be arranged. But maybe we can get you down here either for a talk or for attendance or for some other man a booth or whatever, and actually have a beer in person together.
Yeah, I'd love to.
I love it. So closing thoughts, it's 5:30. I know some people had some meetings they had to drop for, some people getting in here a little bit late. Also do want to mention, Brandon, and this is for everybody in chat, the 70 plus folks who are in chat right now. I will be throwing a Simply Cyber, the community meetup. We do them at most of the conferences that there's a presence at, but the DEF CON one is very big. Like, we're renting a whole brewery out this year. So if you do show up that week, Brandon, you're obviously more than welcome. Just let me know if you're in.
Yeah, man, sounds good. Love to.
Yeah. See what's happening. See, like, look at, hold on one second. I just want to point this out. Where is it? I can't see it. So Fred on, who's from Ghana, who actually, when I was sick, gave me like a soup recipe to make me feel better, saying I'm rude because
He's not rude. You just gotta know Jerry keeps a tight schedule, man. Like if you show, I would hate to see your actual calendar, and I get it. Like that's work for you. No. So.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's all good. So we've been joined with Brandon Poole. He's solution architect, talking about finger on the pulse of the day. He even told a couple inside baseball stories about me pre Simply Cyber, and all the things we didn't even get into. Actually, I'm going to expose myself just because I think this is a really funny story and one that is like peak me. So Brandon actually loves coffee also. Like I drink coffee every morning, and I make a big deal about coffee. In fact, I don't even have it. Like I actually have like a Simply Cyber bean now. Someone's trying to like work with me. But anyways, we got so sophisticated at one point that I wrote an SOP on how to properly make the French
Right.
press. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
So like when we'd hire new people, I would present them the SOP. And like, if you wanted to get in on the morning coffee, because we had like a coffee station and stuff, like you weren't allowed to drink from that coffee station unless you like reviewed the SOP and got sign off that you had understood the process. But good days. Talk about a mature program, huh, Brandon?
Oh yeah, that was. I mean, everyone knows InfoSec's run off of caffeine and craft beer, right?
It sure is. All right, guys, definitely go check him out. This is what Brandon Poole, I keep saying Brandon Poole, Brandon Stevens LinkedIn looks like. It's this one right here. Go connect with him, harass him a little bit. He's a wonderful person. If you've been here the last hour, you know dang well how cool he is. Brandon, thank you for coming on to the show. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge with us. It's been really, really insightful. And hopefully we see you at Simply CyberCon, bro.
Yeah, would love to. And I'll add, I know I asked if this was all right ahead of time. And you said, of course, but one, I have a passion for helping people. Mentoring is that. Like, do not have the depth of knowledge on the cyber side that Jerry does, but I feel like I do have some, probably maybe like some, if you have any advice on any sort of the common goals that Jerry has as far as helping people further their careers, hit me up on LinkedIn. I promise I won't try to sell you anything. And work for a fantastic company, and we have a security position posting in the next couple of days that I'll share with your group as well. So yeah, I'm not very active on LinkedIn, but don't be afraid to hit me up in the messages or post or whatever.
I love it. Thank you all so very much. Thank you, Brandon, and everybody. Be well, and until next time, stay secure.
All right.